Hey everyone, it's Jackie. Welcome back to Out of Crazy Town. Today's episode is one you cannot miss. I'm sitting down with powerhouse family law attorney Gianni Avalos, better known online as the Single Mom Attorney. She's here to drop truth bombs, deliver real strategy, and flip the script on what it means to fight for your kids, your rights, and your peace. Trust me, you're going to want to take notes. Let's dive in. Hello, Gianni Avalos. I am so excited that you are here on Out of Crazy Town. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. This is so on brand. I love your show.
Speaking of on brand, how I first found you was through JD Milo's
Yeah,
Instagram, I think, when you had him at an event. And I wanted to ask you more about that later,
yeah.
because I'm sure anyone listening knows who JD Milo is as well. But I know you as the single mom attorney, and your Instagram and TikToks in particular, I extra love. And then also you have your YouTube channel, Sue Your Baby Daddy. So if anyone here doesn't know who you are yet, which I'm sure they do, go to all those places and we'll remind you at the end. But thanks again for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
So we need more attorneys like you. It is so amazing that you are out there advocating for single moms and all the things that happen in the family court system. So I first just would love for you to tell the listeners a little bit about your journey and how you got here.
Yes, yes. All right. So I'm single mom attorney, Gianni Avalos, and I sue baby daddies for a living. That's what I always tell people, right? But I also tell people that only deadbeats get offended. And all
Yes.
And in all seriousness, I am a family and divorce attorney here in the state of Texas. My firm accepts cases in the Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, San Antonio, and Austin regions. And yeah, we're growing, we're scaling, and we primarily focus on representing single moms in those regions. So we only market to single moms, hence the single mom attorney handles on all social media platforms.
Yeah.
But how did I get started? I'm a single mom myself. And so I was studying for the bar exam with my baby. I posted like a video montage of that, and that video went viral on TikTok. And then ever since then, I've just been like really growing a community of single moms that have been inspired by my story. And it feels really great to not only inspire them, but also advocate for them in the courtroom. So,
Oh my gosh. Well, we need you so much because I know I was at a loss going through it, which is why I'm sitting where I am today. And it was just such a struggle to find an attorney who really
yeah.
understood. And I love what I do as a divorce coach because I get to sort of sometimes bridge that because I know that you have that extra element of understanding, but sometimes you have to work with what you have, right?
Right? Yeah.
With an attorney. But you have said before that you're sort of hoping to challenge the family court system one case at a time. What do you mean by that?
I want them to bring the humanity back into these cases. And I'm not sure if family court ever did that, but I know that since I started practicing, I haven't really seen it as much as I want them to, right? I remember whenever I was in law school, I read the book by Sonia Sotomayor, and she had put in her book that courts are not courts of justice, like they're courts of law. And I find that to be so true in family law, right? And because so often I can have a client, single mom, where I just know that her intuition is where it needs to be. The law I wish was more favorable to her side of the story, but it's not. And that's where we see a lack of justice, a lack of accountability in the family court systems. And so, I have judges that follow me, they admire my page as well. And it's just about posting these videos with the understanding of who is going to watch this, right? Is this somebody that, I mean, I have like legislatures that follow my page too, actually. And so I'm like thinking, if the next video that I post just gives them a little bit of insight, a little perspective into how single moms see these laws being advocated for or against, then I think that I'm challenging it in the way that I can as an attorney and not necessarily a lawmaker.
Yeah. And so I would love to know what advice you have for mothers because, like you said, I often will say it is not a justice system, it's a legal system. So I love quoting that as well. And I think that there's so much confusion because we're constantly hearing in the best interest of the child. And, when you go to court and your declaration needs to really be about the kid and why you're doing this for the child and what. And then we try to apply our common sense, which we often can't. So I'd love for you to, because common sense is, well, I am the stay-at-home mom. I have been for 12 years. Dad, not even disparaging him, but dad doesn't ever go to anything, no school functions, no doctor's visits, nothing. The kids are literally just in shock if he doesn't know what he's doing, if they spend more than 48 hours there. So court system, don't you just see that it's better if the kids are with me more? And that doesn't work. What are
Right.
your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that it all goes back to, each parent's like fundamental right, right? It's like this whole, you're taking away his constitutional right to be a dad if you restrict his possession and access, if you restrict his time with seeing the children. And that's where I see that a lot of the judges' hands are like tied because even if they want to, side with mom in that case, they're like, well, is this dad going to take it up to an appellate court? Are they going to wonder like why my ruling was so arbitrary, right? And you mentioned like best interest of the child, and that is very true. I mean, but it's like I always tell moms, your definition of best interest of the child is going to be very different from, his definition versus the judge versus his attorney versus what my definition might be, right? The amicus attorney, etc. And so I always tell moms that whenever you're going to go to family court, it's about understanding like where you start. Because if you go in there with the mindset of, give me what I want because it's fair and it's because what I just know to be true and what should happen, it's like you're not going to get very far. If you're going to be in the system of family court, you have to understand how the rules work. Okay. You have to understand the cards that you're dealt with at the very onset of your case. And I always tell moms, like, just because you're the mom doesn't mean that you have this like upper hand advantage of, oh, we're just going to believe whatever she says, which is very like controversial in today's date because people want to say like, oh, well, the courts favor moms. And I'm like, I don't think that that's necessarily true. Like moms have just as high or just as much of a burden of proof to satisfy if they want to restrict any possession and access from dads, which is why whenever I hear a dad saying like, oh, well, she won't let me see my kids, or oh, the courts are just going to rule in mom's favor anyways, or oh, well, the courts took away my right to see my kids. I'm like, that means that something went wrong in that situation and it wasn't her. Like, it's that you haven't asserted your right to be a dad because essentially those rights are just handed to you if you can just pass the DNA test, right? So, where have you been?
Absolutely. So what I'm hearing you say is basically you need to know your audience. And obviously there is
Yes.
such a learning curve and you need to put the work in to understand the court system because, yes, I have had clients that have been like, but you don't understand. The kids are used to eating this and, I only cook this way and, we do our homework this way and we do. And the courts don't care if they're being fed and the homework's being done. They don't, all that doesn't mean you're not a good mom and all of those, mom points don't count. That's
Right.
awesome. But the court doesn't care if dad feeds them pizza every night and the homework gets done 5 minutes before they walk out the door in the morning.
Exactly. They don't. It's like one of the hardest pills that I have to give moms to swallow is that, like, if we're going to go to family court, there's only so many things that the family court is going to have in their control, right? And I tell moms, like, okay, well, they're not going to make him be a better parent. They're not going to make him be a better person. They're not going to make him be a better co-parent. All they can do is set these kinds of like rules and guidelines of like, let's hope that this mitigates, right? The controversy between the two. But when you decide to leave that person, like you also release and lose like a level of control that you once had in your parenting dynamic, right? Because now the children are not with you the majority of the time. And I think the frustration is oftentimes projected to the family courts when it's like the family courts, like you said, like if everybody was going into court because, oh, well, the dad gave the kids chicken nuggets like 7 days out of the week, right? Then we would be already more saturated and like over like condensed as than we already are. And so it's about understanding like how much of my frustrations can actually be, relieved or can I actually receive solutions for in the family court system versus how many of those are they not going to handle?
Yeah, absolutely. No, they have no interest in policing that stuff and they don't even want to go down that road because like they don't have the resources or the time.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And you'll often hear them, I know in my case, they were like, I'm going to kick you guys out of court, go in the hall and see if you can figure this out because I have a hardcore domestic violence case that takes precedence over you. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't figure it out there, when you come back here, I'm not going to be nice about it. And I was like, whoa, okay.
This is very true. And I've heard that said, and it's like sometimes that is efficient, but also sometimes it's like, no, we're here because we cannot,
Yeah.
reach a solution, right? And it almost feels like you're kind of getting bullied into this corner of like settlement whenever the judges tell you that. But you're right. A lot of the times they're kind of comparing you in their docket, and it's like, okay, well, if y'all are in here because of co-parenting differences versus like a domestic violence dispute, it could it's like, where do you fall on that totem pole?
Yeah, yeah. And then, so let's take the scenario where your client's ex is that extreme Darvo smear campaign financial abuser. I saw one TikTok that you had where you were talking about, hopefully you have an attorney that reads all your documents and text messages because some dad went in there claiming something that wasn't true. But I guess my question to you is, what is your strategy for your client or the mom that has that super sinister, like going for the jugular act?
Well, it's like in those situations, nobody really wins in family court because even if we go in there and we get you everything it is that you want, it doesn't stop the fact that you're still gonna have to co-parent with this person, that this person is still tied to you in your life forever, really. I mean, as long as your child is alive, right? It's a hard battle to face, but all I can do is hope that the clients recognize that what I'm trying to do in that situation is really take note of like what is their priority whenever it comes to their requested relief? Is their biggest priority to do exchanges in a public place? Is it to increase the child support? Is it to get rid of the child support altogether in exchange for getting sole custody, right? And negotiating that? I mean, it really boils down to like, you're not going to get everything, even if he's the worst person in the world. Like you're still just not going to go in there and feel like you won it all, right? But it's like, okay, what are your priorities? Let's start there. And that's what I'm really trying to take note of in those cases so that she can still feels like she received this overall win.
That is such great advice. Let's get your priorities down and then look at number one and go for that.
Yeah.
Because I think that, right, going back to the previous comment we just made, you're sort of looking for emotional justice that this person is an evil, awful asshole.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get it there. And I always in the coaching side say, okay, we need to look at this behavior because in 9 times out of 10, it's to get your attention and to antagonize you. We need to look at ways to really disengage while you're still looking like a good co-parent for court, but we need to look at every possible way to disengage you from this person so that they stop using you as fuel.
I agree. And I think that the abuser can recognize when they still have this emotional effect on their victim, right? And that's one of the things that I have to tell moms. It's like, even like, let's look at this situation and say the court's not going to care about X, Y, and Z, right? But it's like you said, how much of this can you actually control? How much of you are you still giving to this person, right? Whenever he harasses you in the middle of the night, are you going on and on and on about why that's not the right thing to do? Or are you just simply ignoring him, right? Because those kinds of people, like they're looking to have an impact on a person. They're looking to get under your skin. And that's what I tell my moms. I'm like, he knows exactly how to do it because look at it, like it's working. You are giving him the exact reaction, the exact effect that he wants to have on you. And when you can accept that and see it for what it is, it's like, okay, I'm going to stop giving him what he wants. Like, let's forget about procedural and legalese and attorneys and custody disputes, right? Like, just the co-parenting dynamic itself can really not necessarily be completely resolved, but you can find less frustration in it if you can not give him that emotional reaction that he's wanting.
Absolutely. I think there is just so much value in understanding the game that these people are playing. Like I said, and their whole goal is to keep you full of anxiety and spinning because then you can't think like you need to beat your case. You can't be
Right.
a good client for your attorney. You can't even show up for your kids and they're just laughing all the way to all the way
Yeah.
down the lane like I got her.
And it's like, okay, well, when these situations happen, it's like, how much of your day did you consume giving this person the attention that you could have just simply given, like maybe like a one or two sentence response to? And how much of that did you now waste in attorney's fees because you're kind of looking as the attorney to be this person that's resolving your co-parenting disputes? And it's like, while I want to be empathetic and I want to make you feel like, okay, I'm going to solve all these situations. I'm very realistic with these clients and it's like so much of this depends on you, mommy. Like my hands are tied with what the family code says and what I can achieve for you in court. I'm not a co-parenting like facilitator or anything like that, right? And so I definitely recognize like the abuse when it's happening and I can see it whenever my clients are falling for it and all I can do is kind of like open their eyes to it. But I mean it's easier said than done. It takes them time to get to that point.
Sure, sure. I always say like the abuser slash toxic person has the remote control to you and they've installed it with buttons they know that will trigger you. And so you just have to uninstall those buttons so that they're not active anymore because yeah, you're no longer under the same roof and they still have total control over how they make you behave. So yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
I completely agree.
Talking about documenting, because when I was watching one of your TikToks, and you guys, you have to go there because I love how you mix humor. It's hilarious, but then you also have such some great advice. And you were talking once about how it's great if you can have an attorney that actually reads all of the content or the evidence that they send them. But help clients be a good client for their attorneys. Like, how could they help organize it, or what? When it comes, I guess, just to documentation, because I know I always, I'll give you an example, Gianni.
Yeah.
I say, like, you need to have a pro you column, and that's twice as long as your anti them column. And that just is sort of a start for how they can start putting things in buckets.
I agree. And I would imagine just from experience, like if I were to tell my clients like make a pro you versus pro him column, a lot of what they're going to put in their column or in the anti him column is going to be very conclusive. And that's what we do not want to see as attorneys. We don't want to see them just saying, "Oh, well, he's irresponsible." No. It's like, give me examples of that, right? Like, is he picking up the children late from school 3 times out of like five, right? Are they now facing truancy? Because like those are real situations that would lead a judge to conclude that their co-parent is irresponsible and without you having to call them that, right? And so that's what we're really looking for. And then another thing that I tell people is that when you go into court, you're telling a story, right? And so how do you tell a story? You tell it in chronological order. What happened? When? Give me that. Because so often people are like telling their story and they're like going, they have ADHD. So they're going from like one point of the story to the other. And then they forget that or they don't realize that they didn't tell me like, oh, I've actually now jumped to a different part of the timeline. And it's like, I love it whenever people can provide a timeline. And then next to something that is significant, they could even put in like parentheses, supporting evidence, okay, like text message dated on X, Y, and Z or something like that, because that's exactly how we're going to tell it in court. Like we're going to go in there and if we're like wanting to prove a significant event occurred, maybe he withheld possession and access, you have a photo that's timestamped or you have a text message, like reference that because that saves us time. And it's like, oh, well, that's your job as the attorney. It's like, absolutely. And I can do that all day. I can look through your file. But would you rather kind of point me in the right direction and make notes for me? Or would you rather me, charge you what I'm going to charge you per hour to do it? And I'd rather it not be the latter.
Absolutely. No, I try to teach clients. We use something like Dropbox, put your documentation there, create hyperlinks, put it in the document. And then when speaking to you, because very often these people, most of the time women, are so dysregulated. You're right. And I remember doing it, Gianni. I couldn't just tell a story. The tangents were insane.
Yeah.
And part of it is because of the dysregulation that comes with abuse,
Yeah.
but it's costing you so much money and you get done and your attorney's like, what's the point? What's the question? I don't know what the question is. So
Yeah.
have bullet points ready, right? When you talk to your attorney,
Bullet
what's the
points
point
are
of this conversation?
Yeah. And I love that because it's like, okay, I'll follow the story. And then it's like, but then I'm like 20, 25 minutes into the meeting with the client or a consultation. And I'm like, half of this just went towards me trying to organize your thoughts, right? And so going into it knowing like, okay, if you're not going to be able to tell it in that kind of order in that moment, like maybe put some notes aside where you focus on putting it in that order before you meet with your attorney.
What do you think like the biggest mistakes are that people make?
Ugh, just reacting emotionally. And I think that there's a lot of attorneys that, if you find yourself in the wrong office, can take advantage of that. For example, like I tell people, okay, if you have a good co-parenting dynamic right now, our job is not to go into court and roll up our sleeves and be the bulldog attorney because like I said, nobody wins in that situation. You're out thousands of dollars. Now you've been in the situation to point the finger at the other parent in court and nobody wins. And what I tell people is that if you are going to file for a modification, or maybe you've been co-parenting informally and now you're going to go seek an official court order to provide some structure, boundaries in your co-parenting relationship, what's going to end up happening? Co-parent is going to get served. And in that moment, they're going to be upset. And I always tell them, like, you know him better than I know him, than I will ever know him. So you tell me the kind of reaction he's going to give you whenever he gets served with a lawsuit, right? And what I see people do is they respond to that emotion and they're like, "Oh, well, I'll see you in court, and I've got an attorney now and da 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 da." And then it's like mom does the same thing, or mom, God forbid, like blocks, dad. And I'm like, just let him throw his tantrum, let him go and consult with an attorney because he's going to do it. And then let him regulate his emotions. And then you can respond, right, with something that's very reasonable. Another thing that I see people do is whenever they are the ones getting served with the lawsuit, they'll read through the petition and a lot of it's just like boilerplate language. At the very end of it, it might say like, "Oh, and we're asking that you pay his attorney's fees." And if a mom comes to me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, like, and he's asking for all these things, he's asking for, primary, he's asking that I pay his attorney's fees." I'm like, that's just like his attorney wanting to create this like all-inclusive petition. Calm down. We don't even really know what he wants here until we talk to his attorney, right? So I think it's like taking things out of context, responding emotionally, and then that can really blow up your case. Always remember that whenever you're going to go into this kind of litigation and you respond emotionally, it's just going to be more money. And I would much rather see a mom put that towards her children than attorney's fees.
Absolutely. And I think that what you said is so true. If you could take a beat, you guys, because I get that this stuff is so triggering and it's so scary, especially coming from another attorney,
Yeah.
and you assume whatever they write is going to happen, or
Yeah.
they must have some legal authority or loophole that we're not getting. They're going to get away with all this crazy stuff.
I
But
know. Yeah.
that's why you're listening to this podcast. We're here to tell you that a lot of that stuff is just they've hired an attorney to match their personality, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're trying to scare you. And so take a deep breath, remember what your goals are, and speak with your attorney and try to keep them. Is that
100%. That's exactly it.
how would you say that people should prioritize their goals? I guess like so someone's coming to you with financial and custody.
Right.
What are their first steps? Like they've just been served.
So, right. So if they've just been served with a suit, like let's say baby daddy was the one that was serving them with a modification because they want to reduce child support. Mom's like, "Oh, I really need the child support, but then I have all of these co-parenting differences. So while we're at it, like let's talk about the modification that needs to happen on both sides." It really just depends. I mean, for the most part, a lot of the clients will tell me like I'm prioritizing child support over conservatorship. I'm prioritizing possession and access over conservatorship. And so I always like to tell people whenever you think about these orders, at least here in Texas, picture it like, it's in columns, like compartmentalize it. Understand that child support is impacted by conservatorship, but it's not the end all be all to it. So all three of those prongs affect each other in some way. But it doesn't mean that, for example, just because you have sole custody, that now, dad doesn't have to pay child support, or because you have sole custody, now you get to be the end all be all of when dad can see his kids. And so when people are throwing around these terms like custody schedules, possession and access, child support, sole versus joint versus rights and duties, it's like, where do you even put that whenever you're trying to picture your custody order? Especially if you're new to the process, it's like, okay, telling them what terms fall into what parts of that order really helps them understand where their priorities are going to land.
Okay, I love that. And then also, when it comes to mindset, you said something I thought was so profound about sort of getting hung up on when the other parent isn't a good parent or doesn't show up to things or doesn't, show up to doctor's appointments or whatnot. And it was kind of along the lines of, look, if you've already decided or you're the parent that shows up,
The default.
investing all this energy into being angry when they don't could you elaborate on that?
No, it's so funny that you made that because I just made a video about that last night. I haven't put it out yet, but I'm going to release it this week. And it all goes into when you sign up to be the default parent, the primary parent, you sign up to be the parent that is there whenever the other parent is not, whenever the other parent is not present. And so I've had situations where I've seen women that they're like, "No, I want to bring this up in court regardless. Like, he needs to be there. It's not fair." And I've even had judges like ask the primary parent mom, like, "Well, if you don't want this, I mean, if you don't want to be the present parent whenever he's not there, somebody's got to be. Do you want to give that responsibility to him?" And I'm always warning women, like, be very careful about the issues that you bring up in court because, you don't want the judge to do like a, 180 on you because of it. So a lot of it is mindset, yes. And it's something that I have personally had to accept in my own co-parenting relationship is just I don't want to waste time and effort, much less money, on something that I can't control. And I also ask moms too, like, even if he, even if you could make him show up to all of the baseball games or, pick up the kids every other weekend, like, do you want that? Do you want somebody that's showing up because you made them show up? Like, the court's not going to make him be a better parent. And if you can't make him be a better parent, then I can't make him be a better parent. Then, like, just honestly accept the fact that he is who he is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you know who he is. He's shown you who he is. No one can change him or make him do anything. And right, it's like take all that energy and just focus on you and your kids and what you can do. And I remember I had a therapist once that said, look, if they've got you, you get them good therapists, you've got a therapist, and we're going to guide them through life and teach them the lessons to be resilient for how to deal with people like their father, and they're going to come out with all these skills. Like this is the deck we've all been given. So we're going to teach them some awesome skills. So by the time they hit, adulthood, they're going to be good to go.
Exactly.
It's
Those
like
kids grow up to be very resilient. So,
yeah, yeah, they can grow up to be, we're going to take the safe situation and make the best out of it. Absolutely.
yeah.
So I love that. I love that. Okay, I have some rapid fire questions for you. When I was listening to you just on so many of your posts with social media, one thing I noticed was just your ability to think quick on your feet, speak quickly and but in a very right well manner. And I just thought that is what people should listen to when they're interviewing attorneys. Because to me, that's like if you're in court.
Yeah. Yeah. You can think quick on your feet for sure. Yeah. And then it's
Absolutely.
only get like you don't have a preferential setting and they're like, okay, it's only X amount of minutes per side. It's like, okay, you're going to concise what you're trying to say and you're going to only pull out what's relevant. So absolutely.
It's actually on that topic. Do you have any other advice? Because obviously you're in Texas, you have all the different offices in Texas or all the different cities, I'm sorry, for where you have offices. What advice do you have for people when they're interviewing?
Oh, okay. When you're looking for an attorney, the number one thing that I would be looking for is this somebody that really practices what you're looking for, what you're seeking services in? If you're looking for a family law attorney, do they exclusively practice family law, or is it something that they practice to keep the lights on, but they're really making their money somewhere else, right? Because I've seen that happen, and oftentimes those are the attorneys that are also offering lower rates, flat fees, because just not going to put as much effort into the case. Like I'm going to be completely honest, it's like I've had people tell me, oh, well, I paid somebody $5,000 for my entire divorce and I can't get a hold of him. I'm like, yeah, you already paid him all the money. Like, I only get paid if I talk to you. So that's, that's going to incentivize me for sure. I would say, yeah, look for what all practice areas are included in their firm. And then also, is this somebody that is giving you the time to convey your side of the story? Oftentimes, like we talked about, people are not able to I guess like get to the point in a consultation whenever they're looking for an attorney, but I will usually look at the clock whenever I hear somebody kind of going on that tangent, and I'll say, okay, I'm going to give this person like 3 to 5 minutes to just let it out. They need to let this out, I'm not going to cut them off even though I know they're kind of going down a path where I'm like I'm going to redirect them eventually, but it's about making them feel heard even if you are in a time constraint, because it's like otherwise, you're going to end up leaving that consultation thinking like, well, I didn't tell her this, but like, should I have told her it, right? And so making you feel heard, validated as well. But also do not go to the attorney that is going to just kind of like leave you in this, okay, well, we'll see what the judge rules, right? Because a lot of the times, especially in Texas, like the family code already tells you what the courts are going to rule. And if we have to satisfy a burden of proof, because like, let's say, for example, the courts are already going to say y'all are going to be joint managing conservators. But if you want to have sole managing conservatorship, let's say we're going to try to prove it because we're going to try to get you that because you've been a victim of family violence. Okay. I mean, I can look at your evidence and pretty much tell you, like, is this something that the courts are probably going to give you sole managing conservatorship on because there's been a history of family violence, right? But there's a lot of attorneys that they're going to be too scared to like tell you that. I think it's because they know that you're going to react in a way that's like, oh, well, you don't believe me and you're not on my side, right? I've gotten into it with people in consultations and I'm like, I'm not here to sugarcoat it for you. I am not here to sell you the moon, the stars, the rainbows. Like, I would much rather lose you as a client than for me to lose your trust at the end of the case and then just have said, oh, well, oh, that's what the judge said, that's what the judge ruled. And it's like when I could have warned you about that, right? So going to somebody that is going to be blatantly honest with you, even whenever it hurts. And you'll find attorneys like that, but are you going to trust that attorney? If the answer is no, then you probably need to keep going and getting a second or third opinion. And I've told my clients that I'm like, if you do not trust me at this point in time with the information that I'm giving you, I wholeheartedly welcome you to go and get a second and third opinion, before you come back and not take my advice. So,
Absolutely. And get the second and third opinion because when all three tell you that's never going to happen in Texas or that's
yeah,
never going to happen in California or you should maybe listen and then they
yes.
can talk to you about alternatives or who,
Alternatives.
yeah,
Yeah. And that
yeah.
is so real because it's like, even though our hands can be tied, it's like, for example, okay, well, maybe you won't get sole managing conservatorship, right? But like, let's talk about what it really boils down to. I tell my moms, I'm like, we can try to negotiate sole in theory, is what I call it. We call it the heads, meds, and eds. Like, I want you to have the exclusive right to what really matters, like educational, medical, psychological, and the passport. And then that basically is sole in theory, right? So it's about somebody that's like, okay, even though I cannot get you this, what kind of alternative relief can I try and work towards to where you still feel like what you want is validated and still being worked towards, right?
Oh my gosh, heads, meds, and
Eds.
oh my God, that is so brilliant and so true because you have to look at ways to get what you want while letting everyone else feel like they got what they wanted. So without trying to make a judge make a ruling that's never going to happen, with out
Yeah.
dad or the other parent feeling like they had everything taken from them, and that is absolutely brilliant. But at the end of the day, those are the important things.
Exactly. And it's like we find ourselves in these, like, let's say we're in a mediation and dad is like just so hung up on the fact that he's like, no, I don't want to give her sole custody. Like it makes them feel lesser, right? And it's like a good attorney is going to recognize like the psychology of what's happening in the mediation, right? And so it's like, okay, well, if he's so hung up on the name, like I don't care what we call it. What if you want to call it joint managing conservator, cool, let's call it that. But like what I care about is those rights that are outlined in the order because those, even if they're joint managing conservators, we can still give mom exclusive rights to X, Y, and Z, and then we can still call it joint managing conservatorship. So it's about trusting your attorney when we say that. But sometimes we get clients that they're like, no, I want sole custody. And I'm like, I'm literally giving you the same thing. I'm just not calling it that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, we're gonna get that, and then you're gonna have, practically speaking, you're gonna have all the things that you need. And
exactly.
in my, this is on a financial note, but I know in my settlement, my ex was hell bent after 17 years of marriage that he was not going to pay spousal support. Like he was going to die on that hill. He would spend all the money to do it because he thought it'd be cool to walk around town and say, ha, 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 I don't pay spousal support. After, that's such a cool thing to say. So I told my team, this is what he wants. So for this to end, we're going to take as much money as we can find in every pocket we can find it and get the hell out of here. And then he can say will do this buyout or whatever that he
Oh,
doesn't pay spousal support, even though I got all these other piles of money. But he gets to go and say that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you won in the end, but like you got in his mind, right? Like what is it that this guy really wants? And also why does he want that? And you were able to use that and still get what you wanted in the end.
And you have to really think strategically like that, especially when you're dealing with, so pathological. So,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to fire off some questions to you because you're
Okay.
my fast thinker, fast talking attorney. All right. What's one myth about family law you wish you could banish forever?
That moms always have the upper hand in court. That's a myth.
Such a myth. Oh my God, it's almost, I think, the opposite. Okay. Best tip for surviving a custody hearing.
Let them. I know that that sounds contradictory to, really putting up a front in court, but there's some things that you just have to let them, right? So you can focus on the attention on what it is that you really want. Don't let this person have all of the control over you, especially emotionally and mentally, because that's going to lead to financial control as well. Even if they're no longer in your pockets, they're going to know that they're getting these responses out of you, and that's just wasting attorney's fees.
Oh my God, that's you just summed up my whole goal in life right now as a coach.
Yeah.
That's the hill I die on. Okay, one thing every mom should write down or document today.
Involvement, I would say,
I love
because
that one.
Yeah, if you're dealing with an inconsistent co-parent, it's like, okay, well, you can't go to court and say, oh, he's inconsistent. It's like, tell me how he's inconsistent. Has he never exercised a Thursday in the past year? Write that down. That's what I want to know. Put everything in chronological order.
And also, I have to go off on this tangent. Don't you also think this, and this is where I was kind of saying your pro column should be twice as long as their negative column. So if
Yeah.
every time he didn't show up for a doctor appointment, you then send an email afterwards, not criticizing, just saying, hey, this is what happened in the doctor appointment, da 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 da, little Bobby's fine. If he didn't show up to any of the ballet recitals, you send some photos afterwards and you say, hey, here's some pictures of her. Everything went great. Because that's what's either going to refute false accusations, right? Or if you're asking the judge for extra whatever, they're going to see you're a good co-parent. What do you think about that?
Exactly, because whenever you're trying to get the exclusive right to all of the medical decision making, and he has not ever gone to a pediatrician's visit in the past 5 years, right? If they see that you had at one point, you don't have to do it forever, right? But at one point, we're sending those kind of like follow-ups and, here's the reports and et cetera. Let me know if you have any questions. It is going to refute those arguments that, oh no, well, she's just trying to take something away from me. It's like, well, no, I mean, if she really wanted to try to take something away from you, then why would she have in good faith like sent you those updates, right? But I also tell people like once you see if we're dealing that's very different versus when you're dealing with somebody that is completely absent, completely out of the picture. It's like I tell moms like let them set their own patterns, let them set their own precedent. If they're going to be completely MIA, don't wake the sleeping dragon. Like just you don't have to be sending them all these updates and you're not going to be seen as a bad co-parent if you're just constantly sending them if you're not sending them those updates when the other parent doesn't hasn't texted you back in 5 years, right?
Okay, that's a really good distinction. Thank you for making that. Yep, completely agree. Okay, a moment with a client you'll never forget.
Oh gosh. Well, all of that's privilege, you know?
Oh, right, right, right.
No, but I mean, we've just had so many like just wholesome moments.
Mm.
And I will never forget there was this one client in Dallas that is just, she couldn't really stand up for herself. And my associate was able to recognize in that moment, like the settlement that she was wanting to settle for was not coming, it wasn't really coming from her. It was like her abuser talking through her, and she was like, we're already here. We're already in court. Like, let's go in there. And I've got all of the evidence prepared and ready to go if you trust me. And we came out into this day like that person's just always commenting on all of our posts, like, I love y'all, the team and everything, because it's about standing up for clients even whenever they don't want to stand up for themselves. I mean, of course, we can't make decisions for the clients on their behalf if they're not willing to authorize it, but it's just it's the clients that like really trust us and they're like, yeah, I know they're gonna go in there and kill it, even if I'm scared. It's like you can be scared. You're allowed to be scared. You just have to trust us. So
Oh
those
my
are my
God.
favorite moments with clients.
I love that. What a great story. And last but not least, what's the coffee order you take in with you before you go to court or go to
Oh my
court?
gosh. Brown sugar shaken espresso, grande, extra ice, and a venti cup.
I love it. I knew there had to be one.
Yeah, that's me. I just got that this morning.
All right, Gianni Avalos. Okay, you guys go both to TikTok and Instagram, and you're single mommy attorney, right?
Single mom attorney, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. That's where you'll find me.
Awesome. And then see your baby daddy on YouTube. I love it. Thank you so much for joining me today. This has been amazing. And thank you for all the work that you do.
Thank you for having me. This was such a great conversation. I can't wait to hear the episode.
I will let you know when it's out, and hopefully our paths will cross again soon.
It will. Thank you. Bye.